Hello YouTube, Ronin Kaze, music too loud. That's a oldie but a goodie. That's a callback for those of you that are into comedy. Well, today I'm running Star Wars Old Republic, and I'm running Star Wars Old Republic since the last time I played, and I had it on the channel. They changed the classing system where you could take another class in kind of the branch you were. So you're either like a Jedi or non-Jedi. And so if you're a non-Jedi, you got some type of, trooper, warrior kind of class with weapons. And if you're Jedi, you're a Jedi. You're either like a Jedi that does lightning or throws rocks at people, or you're a Jedi that's using lightsaber all the time. You're all using lightsabers, but that's kind of the fundamental difference. So what you're seeing on the screen is this character originally was a bounty hunter, got to level 75, level 80 is the cap. And I just recently am going through all my characters and giving them their second class. Now, here's the bad thing. Once you pick your class, that's it. You're done. That's it. That's the class you got. Elder Scrolls Online has a multi-classing system where you can pick and choose. It's great. It's, it's a great strategy. But this kind of breathes more life into Star Wars Old Republic. I'm going to call it SWTOR from now on. And it's like The Division. And it's one of the things about any role-playing game is that you can have a different build and see how it works. So what you're seeing on the left is what's called like a gunslinger. It's a two-fisted pistol-wielding person. And then the other one is a mercenary, a bounty hunter. And there it's a dual-wielding pistol user also. The main difference is you can see on the left that the gunslinger can go into cover and it gets more protection, and the bounty hunter has heavier armor and has a lot of rockets at shooting, grenades, and those kind of things. So you'll see a difference between the two play styles. What I'm doing is the same mission. It's a mission that you can get and just replay it over and over, and you can slowly advance, and it gives you armor when you're up at a certain level. If you don't want to do all the hardcore group content, you can kind of ease your armor up. And you can see I died with the with the bounty hunter. I played super conservative. You can see on the gunslinger, I'm in cover all the time and using my AoE, spamming my AoE. So that's kind of what I do. So the other thing is, you might have noticed I play a lot of games that are not like the 2025 AAA class games, because I'm always using one of the things that I'm using that I played Star Wars Old Republic on, I played it on my Mac. One thing I found out, the files were 25 minutes long. I've shortened them down here, but they were like 8 gig. And so, because my monitor was on 4K, so like I don't want to do that when I'm, doing these files. It's not a problem with format; it's just a size problem. Like you're always managing when you're making content. And let's say when you're recording in 4K, that's 8 gig, and I got 2 8 gig files, and I'm constantly playing games. And 15 minutes is 8 gigs, so like, there's 80 gig. Which isn't a lot because you have terabytes. But like, one of the things about getting a Mac, I have a Mac Mini, is the internal RAM and the internal hard drive sizes are small. Now, I never have a problem with the RAM, but I got a watch. I've got 256, or maybe I got 512, but as I put games on there, so of course I got like a 2 terabyte drive hooked to it, and I got a bunch of those SDHC cards all over the place. So I kind of got my S together and put all the files I wanted to keep and all the pictures, and I put them on an SD card, so I have those. And I cleaned up all my thumb drives and everything. So I can kind of have this, you know, think about like a thumb drive, a 256 thumb drive. You're going to fill that up like in no time with these videos. So that's kind of my process. And we're getting, again, you know, the things are, the theme of the channel is irreconcilable, right? So you have these two play styles. Star Wars Old Republic's pretty interesting because inside of the class you're in, you can have 3 different play styles. So on the Bounty Hunter Mercenary, you can be a healer, you can do direct damage, you can do damage over time. And on the Gunslinger, you're doing direct damage, damage over time, and then hybrid damage. And so you kind of have some variation. So it makes the game a lot funner. What I found is that on a lot of my characters, I'll pick a tank character as a secondary character. But really, you know, the thing about the Bounty Hunter Mercenary is that it has this thing called death from above. So every once in a while, you'll see me jet up into the air, and I get in the air, and then I just nuke people with rockets. It's a fantastic class. It's a great class. It's very fun. And especially with like Mandalore and those kind of things, you're just like, you know, this is great. A lot of flame throwing and that kind of stuff. So there's all really good stuff in there. The Gunslinger class is based on like a scoundrel. So it's based on someone like Han Solo, where you're going around with pistols. And then this Gunslinger class is more of a DPS. The main character, I would say, is a scoundrel. And there's all these classes have storylines. So that, again, what I told you about Star Wars Old Republic, it's a very inexpensive game. You buy it once, and then you can play through without a subscription. And the stories are fantastic in each class. So there's a ton of content. Why do I play these older games? Because they're easy on the hardware. I can play them on a Mac. I can play them on Linux. I can play them on a handheld PC, portable. And so recently I also read an article about the 14 MMOs you should try. And these are all the MMOs that I'm playing, like Lord of the Rings, Elder Scrolls, Final Fantasy. These are things that run on any computer, right? You don't need the highest end spec computer. The graphics are still good. Matter of fact, on the Mac, I turn up the graphics all the way and the Mac runs it, like no problem. Getting the Mac to run like Division 2 is just a matter of fact, it's, you got to circumvent the anti-cheat software. That's kind of the main thing between Linux gaming, but Linux runs everything. Should I do a video where I see which is better, PC, right? So there's, again, the point of the channel is, right, there's these differences, and the differences are okay, but things have differences for different things. But if you use a computer, and nowadays if you use any type of Office stuff, if you're not using Google Office or Microsoft 365 or any of the free ones in Linux that are, maybe they're free, but you have online-based productivity, it doesn't matter what kind of computer you have. So you should get something that you like. And I think I told you in the last videos that I'm trying to get lower power kind of video or lower power computers to do all the stuff. So that's what you're seeing right now is the gameplay through with the Bounty Hunter and this Gunslinger. So what are some other things? So we got irreconcilable, right? So we can't reconcile some things. Some things are just different. They're never going to come together. They're going to be two separate sides. That's not necessarily negative if you're into Buddhism at all and yin and yang and those kind of things, right? There's kind of a duality of nature, and you can see that a lot. I think you should try to stay away from binary things because life isn't binary. But it's easy for us to go on that. Mentally, it's easy to say it's either this or it's that. And life isn't that simple. And so one of the other things I want to talk about is analogies. And so in the last video, we talked a little bit about fentanyl, and I had a chart up so you kind of see what I was talking about. And I was going to do the same thing with analogies. I think that's a great way to communicate to people. When I was in the Coast Guard and I had to train people, I would use a lot of analogies. There's my monitor, cheap, inexpensive light that my screen went off. So see if I can get it back on. Yeah, there we go. And I'd use a lot of analogies, and I could tell when someone understood the analogy, and then I had them, you know, recapitulate what I'm saying to them, like they would get it, right? And that'd be a way for me to convey kind of complex things to people. But I'm not an English major, YouTube. So I said, okay, am I using the right word? Am I looking for analogy or metaphor or simile? And so I listened to some YouTube stuff on that. And a lot of it was more academic, like if you were taking a test, like analogy, water is to ocean as milk is to cow, or whatever. They would do those kind of analogies. That's not what I'm talking about. And I'm not really talking about metaphors either, right? I'm talking about kind of like metaphor analogy, and it's certainly not talking about a simile, right? So maybe I'm talking about metaphors, but I'm not talking about metaphors like you traditionally see. So I guess I'm trying to give you examples of kind of how this relates to that and make those connections. And so, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at the video, it's just obvious that there's a difference, right? There's two videos, right? So it's like, hey, I'm hitting you over the head with, you know, there's two different things. But ultimately, the second prong of this channel is to help explain things and make them understandable. So when I say I'm not an English major, when I'm looking at the videos, there's no artistic thought in any of those people's mind to what I'm saying. They've only defined language as it's either this, this, or this. It's either analogy is this definition, or it's a similes. And life just isn't like that, right? So I can't reconcile those things together. So are you morphing everything every single time? I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly what you're doing. And I don't know if everything has to be so unique that I'm creating everything every time. But we live in a world and we share languages depending on what country you're in. You share a language with your fellow citizens. And we have the hardest time communicating because a lot of the words have connotations that we all don't know and we all don't use. It's like the example I'd always give when I was in the military, when I went down to the South for the first time and really spent time down there. And I went to a restaurant and someone said, what do you want to drink? And I said, a Coke. And then someone said, what flavor? Because Coke in that area was synonymous with Papa, right? So a lot of this stuff is based on language. And so what am I going to try to get to? Bounty Hunter, Sniper. Maybe that's not a sniper. I got to fix the video. Sorry. But really what's going on here is that you got to have some basis. And that's kind of why I showed you that chart. Doesn't matter if those numbers are exactly right. It just gives us a basis to talk about the problem. It's a magnitude issue then. If it's twice as much as 70, if it's half as much 70, doesn't matter. But it's a magnitude issue then. It's not an understanding issue. So that's kind of what I like about this channel. I do it through games because that's the analogy or the metaphor that I'm using to help explain these things. I'm going to probably do this for the comments. I'm going to probably do those things where buy me a cup of coffee. So I'm going to probably set that up. So if you really want to comment, I would love it. But I'd also like to, if you want to help support me, and I'd appreciate it because that takes some time to comment and give it some thoughtful kind of discussions. So what happened in these two plays on the Sniper or the Gunslinger, it just got finished. Even though I was more conservative, I never died. I eventually died in this one on the other side in the Bounty Hunter. So that's kind of what you're seeing. So that's where we're going. I appreciate all the people that watched the first video. I'm really stoked. I was really excited. Kind of part of my process, I'm using AI to do a summary of the video, and I'm putting that back in the description. So I publish it, then take it down and do this summary and then put it back up. so you guys can have an idea what I'm talking about instead of me just writing. Thanks everyone for watching. Please subscribe, and I thank you and I appreciate you. Have a good one.